Okay, so one time there's this lumberjack and he's looking for a job and he meets up with this timber merchant and he's like all enthusiastic, like, I can totally do this. He gives him an axe and he says, I'm going to do the best you've ever seen. First day he shows up and this lumberjack cuts down 18 trees and his boss is super impressed and says, well done, keep it up, you are the best lumberjack we've ever had. So motivated by his boss's words, the next day he tries even harder, but instead of 18 trees he only cuts down 15 trees. And then the third day he shows up and he's like, I'm really gonna bust it today, and he works even harder, but he only chops down 10 trees. And it goes like this, where every day he's chopping down less trees, but he's working harder and harder. Like, he's even skipping his lunch break and his coffee break. And finally his boss says, if you can't chop down more trees, I'm gonna have to let you go. So he says, all right, I'll do whatever I have to. So he starts staying late. He starts working overtime, coming in on his days off, like, I will chop down more trees. I will do better. But he doesn't get better. He actually continues to get worse. And eventually his boss is like, I'm sorry, I gotta let you go. He returns to his boss and he brings him the axe. And he says, I don't know what happened. I tried my hardest. And his boss looks at the axe and says, when was the last time you sharpened this? And he says, sharpen it? I never sharpened it. I never had time to sharpen it. I was working so hard trying to cut down the trees. We can't become so busy that we don't take time to sharpen our axe. It was once said about President Lincoln, he said when he was chopping down trees, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening my axe. You see, it's often like that for us. When we don't take time to rest, we become less productive, less efficient, and less effective people. Well, we are in the 5th week of our study, Hamilton Through the Bible. Today we're going to take a look at the song, Take a Break, and we're going to talk about rest. As always, I will provide a link in the description below where you can listen to the song and have the lyrics. Take a listen, leave a comment below, and let us know what things stood out to you, what things were interesting, what were your favorite parts about this song. Let's get into it. So this song is called Take a Break, and it's meant to be a break from the very politically heavy second half of the show. It gives us a personal check-in with the Hamilton family, and it's the only one that they have in the second half of the play. When Eliza and Philip are playing the piano and they're counting in French, it is the same tune as when they count in the 10 Dual Commandments. I won't even really try the counting in French, I can't really say it, but and the same thing on 10 Dual Commandments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And it's the very type of thing that you would play when you're first learning to play piano. Playing scales and learning how to do that, which is accurate with a 9-year-old Philip. In the lyric, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day. I didn't know this, but maybe you're smarter than me. This is actually from Shakespeare. This is from Macbeth. And it's a relatively familiar line. And originally, Lin-Manuel Miranda wanted to have a way more obscure line from Macbeth. But when he first put it in, one of his friends who was a Shakespearean scholar said, I'm not even familiar with that line. That is such a deep cut. Lynn reluctantly took it out and put in the phrase that we have today. Now, the play Macbeth is said to be cursed. The superstition is that you never mention it in another play. You don't say it by name when you're inside of a theater. And when speaking of it, you would just call it the Scottish play or the Scottish tragedy. In this production, not only do they quote from it, they mention it by name and mention it by its euphemistic moniker. Now, the legend is that the very first actress that was to play Lady Macbeth died during the production of the play, so Shakespeare had to play her role instead. We don't know if that's true, but that's kind of the legend behind it and why this is called a cursed play. In this song, Lynn sees himself in each of these characters. In Alexander, he relates to a father with this enormous workload. With Eliza, he relates to her desire to slow down and carve out time for the family. But also, like Philip, he's written something and he's proud to show it off to the people he loves. And he says, this song just turned into a therapy session. You probably weren't expecting that. Philip says the line, I have a sister, but I want a little brother. Well, in actuality, he got 5 little brothers and 2 sisters. If you really want to see a play with 8 kids, go see Sound of Music. Okay, that whole section, my dearest, Angelica. This is based on real correspondence between Alexander and Angelica, his sister-in-law, except that they were writing in French. Now, in actuality, Angelica was married before Eliza and Alexander ever even met, but they still corresponded and they still flirted with each other, so that part of the story is completely true. Alexander, you bad boy. Okay, then the line that Angelica answers toward the end of the song, "Screw your courage to the sticking place." That is Angelica quoting from Lady Macbeth. So Alexander begins the song by quoting Macbeth, and then she, toward the end of the song, quotes from Lady Macbeth. Oh, it's this brilliant sandwiching of these two quotes from Macbeth. And you can hear this line somewhere else. Gaston quotes it in Beauty and the Beast during the Kill the Beast song. Okay, let's talk about song meaning. What do we learn about the characters from this song? Well, we learn something that we've already known. Alexander is a workaholic. He won't take a break. And we learned that he still has feelings for Angelica, and he's never stopped flirting with her, which is not good, as we're going to see soon. So let's take a look at what Scripture has to say. In Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 11. "Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day of rest, dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. This includes you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your livestock, and any foreigners living among you. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them. But on the seventh day he rested. That is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy." So this is part of the 10 Commandments. And it's interesting because God's like, honor me, don't have any other gods, don't misuse my name, don't murder, don't steal, don't covet, honor your parents, and rest? It just doesn't seem like it should hold the same weight as these others. But this is not a suggestion. This is a command. There are plenty of other things in the Bible that are important, but they're not listed among the 10 things that we have to do. This is a command from God. This is a command for us because we need it. Teenagers are getting less rest now than they ever have before. We have more homework, more extracurricular activity. You have multiple sports that you play, and you don't just play them one time, you play them all year long. You are just busy, busy, busy. Now I realize this is not everybody's story, and for some of you, maybe you haven't even got to that point yet, and maybe this is something that is on the horizon. But what I want you to understand is that the things that we do now set the pattern for the rest of our lives. If we are super busy now, we're going to be super busy as adults too. This is the pattern that we're setting. And not taking breaks, not having rest is bad for our physical health. It's bad for our emotional health, it's bad for our social health, and it's bad for our spiritual health. In Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 30, he says this, "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." Doesn't that sound good? But I want you to ask yourself, what do you think God means by rest? Like, what is rest and what isn't rest? Is laying in bed watching TikTok until 3 a.m. rest? Is playing Fortnite on the Switch for 4 hours and then picking up your phone and playing Among Us for another 3 hours, is that rest? I don't know, it's something you need to ask yourself, because sometimes we can feel more tired from our rest than we did before we went into that time of rest. I think sometimes it means we just need a break from all the noise in our life. Sometimes it means no music, no screens, just rest. Taking a nap can be a very holy thing. Jesus says that we should set aside a day, a Sabbath, and that we should keep it holy. I wonder what that means, to keep that day holy. See, in Jesus' day, the rules about the Sabbath had become so strict. It was hard work to make sure you didn't do any work. Mark 2:27 says this, "Then Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of the people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. You see, for them, work was leaving home. It was cooking. It was even healing people. Jesus healed someone on the Sabbath, and instead of people being excited that he healed someone, they called him out and said, dude, you're working. You're breaking the law. And so it became this thing where people were finding ways to game the system. You could only travel as far as your possessions were. So if your possessions are in your house, you can't leave your house. But if you accidentally left a pot and a pan over at your neighbor's house, you could walk over there because your possessions are over there. And so they would find ways to game the system, to cheat the system, to go, all right, look, I'm not technically breaking the Sabbath. And you know what? Once you're doing that kind of stuff, you're not actually following the rules anyway. You're missing the whole point. Our Sabbath, our day of rest, should improve life. It should draw us closer to God. And so part of that is that for us, Sunday is our day to go to church and to spend time with God and to be in the presence of other Christians. And that's a good thing. Earlier in our history here in our country, on Sundays, everybody would go to church, but then you would go home and you would just sit quietly. You had to do things that didn't require any work, and people were very strict about what to do on Sundays. And it became a burden for people. And like Jesus said, Sabbath was made for you. Like, it is a gift for you to rest, to recharge, to speak life back into you so that you are ready to accomplish the things that the next week holds. And so sometimes that includes sleeping, sometimes it includes sitting or reading, sometimes it includes being with friends, being with family, eating good food, enjoying beautiful scenery. All of those things speak life into us, and they help us rejuvenate. Jesus tells us, I want you to rest. I want you to be refilled. I want you to reconnect with me. And that should give you the boost that you need to get through this week. And it's an important thing for us to stop, to slow down, to sharpen our axe, so that we can be more effective in the life that Christ has for us in this next week. All right, next week, we're going to look at the song, Say No to This. Woo! This is probably one of the most PG-13 songs that we're going to have. We're going to look at fighting against temptation. See you next week.